The year is 1880. We are in Britain, a small rain-swept island in the North Atlantic that has, somehow, become the master of the largest empire ever assembled in human history. Roughly 1/4 of all the land on Earth, and 1/4 of every human being alive, owes allegiance to a single, short, middle-aged woman in a black dress sitting in a castle in the English countryside. She rules India, the brightest jewel of the empire, where she is empress over 300 million subjects. She rules Canada and Australia, Egypt and Burma, vast tracts of Africa, the islands of the Caribbean, ports in China, and 1,000 smaller possessions scattered across every ocean. Royal Navy warships, painted in their distinctive black and buff, patrol every sea on Earth, and the world's commerce moves on credit issued from the City of London, the financial capital of the planet. And you are that woman. You are Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Empress of India, the most powerful sovereign on Earth, and the longest reigning monarch in your nation's history. Using advanced AI trained on the surviving royal residences of Britain, the meticulous journals Queen Victoria herself kept for nearly 70 years, the dispatches of her prime ministers, the photographs and letters that her family exchanged across half the courts of Europe, and the records of an empire that documented itself obsessively, we have reconstructed a single day in the life of the woman who gave her name to an entire age. Step past the red-coated guards at the gates of Windsor Castle, but understand the strange truth at the heart of this monarchy. The most powerful queen in the world has been a widow for almost 20 years, and she rules her global empire wrapped head to toe in the heavy black silk of perpetual mourning. The deepest luxury of your court is not gold or silk, though there are mountains of both. The deepest luxury is grief. No previous monarch in your nation's history has been permitted to indulge in personal feeling on quite this scale. Your beloved husband, Prince Albert, died of illness almost 2 decades ago, and you have refused ever since to come out of mourning. The black dresses, the widow's cap, the heavy jet jewellery made of fossilized coal carved into mourning ornaments, the strict rules against bright colours at court, all of these are not simply your personal sadness. They have been imposed upon the most fashionable society on earth. Black silk dyes have become a vast industry. Mourning jewellery is a luxury market. The very tone of your court, sober, restrained, devoutly Christian, has been bent to the shape of your private sorrow. Your power is so absolute that you have made an entire empire grieve with you. You wake in your private apartments at Windsor Castle, the largest inhabited castle in the world, a vast complex of stone towers, halls and chapels that has been a royal residence for nearly 1,000 years. Your rooms are not the gilded ballrooms of European courts. They are dense, comfortable, intensely Victorian, filled with heavy velvet curtains, dark wallpapers, mahogany furniture, oriental rugs, dozens of family photographs in silver frames, and what one observer once called the holy clutter of a much-loved home. Family portraits line every wall, miniatures of your 9 children, busts of your dead husband, sketches drawn by your own hand. A room of your late husband's is kept exactly as he left it on the night he died, with fresh water poured into his washbasin every morning and his evening clothes laid out, a ritual you have insisted upon for almost 20 years. A fire crackles in the grate. A maid lays out your tea. Outside the windows, the green parkland of Windsor stretches away under a thin English mist, and a battery of artillery somewhere in the distance fires a salute to mark the rising of the sun and the rising of the Queen. You are dressed by your wardrobe maids in the deep, unwavering uniform of a widowed sovereign. A long black silk gown, simple in cut, with a high neck and long sleeves. A white widow's cap of fine lace pinned over your hair. A small black bonnet for when you go out. Around your neck hangs a locket containing a portrait of your husband, and braided into a piece of jewellery on your wrist may be a lock of his hair, for the Victorians wear the dead upon their bodies as a sign of love. Your only colour is the deep blue ribbon of the highest order of chivalry slanting across your chest on formal occasions, and the gleam of certain great jewels, the diamonds, sapphires, and pearls of the Crown collection, brought out for state events. Hidden among them sits the most famous diamond in the world, the Koh-i-Noor, taken from the treasury of an Indian Maharaja and recut to sparkle for European eyes, a single stone whose name has caused wars. You wear empires upon your fingers, and you wear them dressed in black. By mid-morning, the work of being queen of a quarter of the world begins. Red leather boxes, the famous boxes carried by royal messengers, arrive at your apartments each day, heavy with state papers from the Prime Minister's office, the Foreign Office, the War Office, the India Office, the Admiralty. Reports from viceroys in Calcutta, governors in Hong Kong, generals in Southern Africa, ambassadors in Berlin and St. Petersburg and Washington. Bills passed by Parliament that require your signature. Petitions, appointments, dispatches, telegrams. The British monarchy of your age is what is called a constitutional one, which means that the elected government, headed by your Prime Minister, makes the day-to-day decisions in your name, while you retain the right, as one of your closest advisers famously summarized, to be consulted, to encourage, and to warn. In practice, this is more power than it sounds. You are consulted upon every great decision. You write long, pointed letters to your ministers, full of strong opinions on foreign policy, military affairs, and appointments. You have lived through the reigns of multiple prime ministers, some of whom you have adored and worked with closely, others whom you have privately loathed and treated coldly. A minister who has lost the Queen's confidence has lost a great deal indeed. And the empire itself, that vast pink expanse on the maps of the world, requires constant attention. In India, you are not merely queen, you are Empress of India, a title carefully invented and bestowed upon you to reflect your sovereignty over a subcontinent of ancient civilizations. A vast bureaucracy of British administrators, the famous Indian Civil Service, governs the subcontinent in your name, alongside a British officered army built largely from Indian troops. Tea, cotton, jute, opium, and grain flow out of India to British factories and warehouses. British manufactured goods flow in. Indian princes, who still rule hundreds of nominally independent princely states, are received as honoured vassals, draped in jewels and silks, and they kneel before you and your representatives in elaborate ceremonies that fuse the rituals of Mughal courts with British military pomp. You have never set foot in India in your life, and you never will. You rule it by paper, by telegraph, by ship, and by an army that has more than once drowned uprisings in blood. By late morning, you take a turn outside, for you believe deeply in fresh air, and even the gloomy Windsor weather does not deter you. You may walk in the great park surrounding the castle, or be driven about in an open horse-drawn carriage, always accompanied by attendants, ladies-in-waiting, and a personal servant or two. Among the most loyal of those servants in your widowed years has been a tall, gruff Scottish manservant, a former gillie from your Highland estate, whose blunt manner and devotion to you have scandalized your court for years. Whispers run through London drawing rooms that he is closer to the Queen than is proper. You ignore the whispers. You have ignored them for years. The friendship of an ordinary plain-spoken man is one of the few things in your life that does not bow and scrape and calculate, and you guard it with the stubbornness for which you are famous. Later in your life, an Indian Muslim attendant will come to occupy a similar place in your affections, teaching you a few words of Hindustani and writing in your private journals, again to the horror of your closest courtiers. Your favourites have always been the people who treat you most like a human being. Your family is, in the most literal sense imaginable, an instrument of foreign policy. You and your late husband had 9 children, and you have spent your life carefully marrying them into the royal houses of Europe, with such success that, by the end of your reign, your children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews will sit upon the thrones of Germany, Russia, Spain, Norway, Greece, Romania, and beyond. You are known across Europe with a mixture of affection and dread as the grandmother of Europe. The German emperor will be your grandson. The Russian empress will be your granddaughter. When the Great War finally tears Europe apart, the rulers on opposing sides will be cousins who once played together in the gardens of your estates. And one strange genetic shadow runs through this family tree, a blood disorder that you yourself carry without symptom and that you have unknowingly passed into the bloodlines of several royal houses, where it will help to undo a Russian dynasty and complicate the lives of princes across the continent. Your descendants will inherit not only your thrones, but your blood. In the afternoon, on a state day, you may travel to London by royal train, a private string of carriages reserved for the sovereign, fitted out as a small rolling palace. At Buckingham Palace, that great cream-coloured building at the end of the mall, you may receive ambassadors, hold investitures where you bestow knighthoods and decorations by tapping ordinary men on the shoulder with a sword and rising them up as sir, and conduct other formal business of the crown. Or you may travel further afield to your beloved private estates, to Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, the seaside villa you and your husband built together as a private family retreat, or to Balmoral Castle in the Scottish Highlands, where you exchange the heavy silks of court for tweed walks among the heather and let yourself become, briefly, an ordinary lady of the country. These private homes are some of the only places on earth where you are permitted to be less than a sovereign. As evening falls comes the state dinner, and even here the seriousness of your court reigns. A formal dinner is held at a long table, glittering with the great gold and silver plate of the royal collection, candelabra blazing with candles, and footmen in scarlet livery and powdered hair standing behind each chair. The food is in the elaborate French style of the age, course after course of soups, fish, entrees, roasts, savouries, ices, sweets, fruit, and sherbets, accompanied by the finest wines, sherries, and champagnes that the great cellars of the palaces can produce. A delicate pineapple from a royal hothouse may be displayed at the centre of the table, a luxury that even great wealth cannot easily command. Conversation is restrained, for protocol forbids guests from speaking to the Queen unless she addresses them first. You are known to eat very quickly, almost impatiently, and by ancient custom, the dishes are cleared away from every guest the moment you finish each course, leaving slower diners staring sadly at the spot where their meal used to be. After dinner, the gentlemen withdraw briefly for port and conversation. The ladies retire to a drawing room. There may be music. There may be a brief presentation of some new debutante or rising young politician. By an hour that any continental court would consider scandalously early, you have risen and retired. The empire is large, and tomorrow's red boxes are already on their way. Late at night, in your private sitting room, you sit at your desk and write. You have written nearly every day of your life since girlhood, filling a long line of leather-bound volumes that will become one of the longest personal diaries ever kept by any monarch. Beside the journals are stacks of letters, to your children scattered across Europe's thrones, to your Prime Minister, to your ladies, to your generals, all in your firm and unmistakable hand. The fire is low, the castle is silent, a quarter of the human race is asleep beneath your name, and you, dressed in your simple widow's black, write into the night, recording it all. For when you die, the ceremony will be the largest funeral the world has ever seen. By your own express written instructions, you will not be buried in the dark, swaying gloom that has marked your reign. Instead, you have ordered, against centuries of royal custom, a white funeral, a soldier's funeral. Your coffin will be draped in the white pall of a queen who chose to leave the mourning behind, and it will be drawn through the streets of London on a gun carriage by sailors of the Royal Navy. Crowned heads of nearly every nation in Europe, many of them your own grandchildren, will follow the procession on horseback. Millions of people will line the route in silence. The boom of guns will mark each minute. You have given your servants secret instructions about what is to be placed in your coffin, items both formal and intimate, including a few mementos of your husband and small tokens of the unconventional friendships of your later life slipped in by your own arrangement so that the rigid court could not prevent it. You will be carried, finally, to lie beside your beloved Albert in a private mausoleum you commissioned at your country estate, the two of you reunited at last in marble side by side, the long, lonely widowhood ended in eternity. An entire age will be named after you, an age of railways, of factories, of cities, of empire, of poverty and progress, of dazzling progress and brutal exploitation, all of it stamped forever with your name, the Victorian Age. That was the life of the most powerful monarch on earth in 1880. A small, plump, devoutly religious woman in a black dress, ruling a quarter of humanity from a writing desk in an English castle, longing for the man she loved and pulling the strings of half the courts of Europe through the marriages of her own children. She was Empress of a planetary empire, grandmother to half the kings of Europe, and a widow who never stopped grieving. The empire she presided over reshaped the modern world, for better and for worse, leaving its languages, laws, railways and scars across every continent. The empire eventually shrank, the colonies became nations, the great fleets were broken up. But the crown still rests upon a head in that small island in the North Atlantic. The carriages still roll out for state occasions, the red boxes still arrive at the sovereign's desk each morning, and somewhere in the long catalogue of empires that have walked the earth, the name of a quiet, stubborn widow in mourning, black will sit forever beside the names of Caesars and pharaohs, the empress who ruled the world from behind a veil of grief.